Pretty stoked today to have these two gentlemen next to me on the Arrive and Thrive Career podcast. We've got Luke Course and James Course. Welcome, boys. How are you?
Going really well. Thanks for having us, Ty.
Yeah, very well. Thanks for getting us in.
Oh, thanks for clearing your schedule to allow me to join you in your office. I feel really privileged, so thank you. Now, you boys run Gawk Outdoor, which is an advertising company specialising in billboards in regional Victoria, correct?
Yeah, if we can oversimplify it down for everyone that doesn't 100% know what that looks like.
Yeah.
It's big rectangles on the side of the road.
Fantastic.
And nothing within kind of an hour of Melbourne. So that's,
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah,
man. I understand.
exactly.
Fantastic. And you got 118.
Yeah, we're starting to
Sites.
lose track a little bit now, but yeah,
Okay.
somewhere between 115 and 120.
Yep, fantastic. And you started the company together back in 2018?
Yeah, there was probably late 2017 we first started talking about it a little bit. James
Yep.
and I were still in our sort of last corporate jobs before we started the business. So I think it would have been October or November of 2017. We both took a week off work and drove around to the whole of regional Victoria in a week, or we went pretty close. We'd sort of had the idea and we thought we'd go out for a drive and see what was out there. So yeah, definitely. I think that week crystallized for us a bit of the opportunity, but also just how much fun it was driving around and not being glued to the one seat the whole time.
Yeah.
So I think that was when it all started. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And we've also got a special guest here, Benj or Ben?
Benny, yeah.
Benny?
I didn't name him either. He's an ex-racing dog. I don't really like human names with dogs. I'm more like
really?
a dog name with dogs kind
that's
of guy.
fair enough,
I
man.
appreciate that. But yeah, he
Yeah,
gets to come
cool.
to the office with me quite frequently.
Yeah, perfect. Is he the only dog in the office or is there...
Yeah. No one's really stepped up to the plate. He's a pretty good office dog though. He's very quiet. So
Right, every now and again, Cody and Phil, who are in
Yeah.
our Geelong office,
Yeah.
support their dogs in.
Yeah, ripper. And so how many crew work for Gawk?
we're up to, including Luke and I, currently 18 full-timers. Yep.
Fantastic.
So 16 others. Yeah.
Fantastic. So take us back to when, the idea generated and you were in the car cruising around. I see also you guys are big fans of trying the local pie shops and things like that. So yeah, how did it all, who came up with the concept of being like, hey, let's go jump in the car and have a drive?
I think we, through my last job, I sort of had enough visibility to see at a higher level. There was a lot of billboards in regional Queensland. There was a lot in regional New South Wales, and there wasn't many in Victoria.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the basic premise. And there was, really only sort of 200 or 300 locations in Victoria compared to about 1,500 in regional New South Wales and probably 3,000 or 4,000 in regional Queensland. So we sort of had that knowledge that there wasn't that much stuff out there. James had worked in town planning and architecture, so I knew a bit about the council sort of approval process, which is a big part of our industry. So we had a really, really high level knowledge that there was probably some opportunity out there, some skills in getting some sites approved. And we just really went for a drive and went, where should we start trying to sign some sites up and take them to council?
It was funny in those early days. We kind of started there with the map of regional Victoria, dots on maps with every billboard in regional Victoria, and literally just sat there and go, okay, what are the towns that don't have dots on maps currently where you can get one approved from a planning sense, which took us to some weird and wacky corners.
Yeah.
And is why our first billboard was down in Portland, which definitely isn't the epicenter of regional Victoria in a population sense or economy sense. So it was funny looking back to that and how we went about it. And to be honest, there's probably a bit more science behind it. And now it's kind of a feel of it, a town and a bit more romance in it rather than science.
Cool. I love that romance. That's good. So it's got to make sure it's a good fit for you guys as opposed to the town.
Yeah, well, definitely in the early days, the science was no billboards there because we thought that if there was billboards, we'd have competition. So they'd be doing the good job of selling them how they would. And, we wouldn't be able to influence that. So it was go fill the gaps and then how much road traffic. So looking at all those sort of factors. And then the further we got down the line, we just realised that, all that stuff really doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, it's what that audience is.
Yep.
And it's as long as you've got enough businesses to look at who are potential advertisers. Like we've got signs that might have 10,000 cars go past them in a month versus the middle of regional centres that might be 400,000, and they sell for just as well and ongoing contracts just because they are a hyper relevant audience to those people in those communities.
Interesting. So there is a real science to advertisement.
I think at the start there was. Now I think then what happens is you get a few sites. We're able to eventually sort of find some sales and sell the advertising space. Certainly not overnight. Like we probably had 3 or 4 months of shit. What have we done here?
Yep.
But then you start getting some sales. Then you also get clients saying, well, why don't you have a billboard in Rochester or wherever it might be. And I think when you're that close to the client, that's what our real advantage has been, is the first sort of 3 years was just James and I. So you're talking to every single client, you're approaching every single landlord, you're talking to every council, and you just know all of that so intimately and can match those client needs to new sites. And it's really rewarding to be able to call an existing client who 2 years ago said, hey, I want a billboard in Rochester, and say, hey, mate, I got one. They go, oh, great. And now you've got a client for the rest of your life in Rochester.
Yeah, that's neat. And so those early days, because it's kind of the perfect storm in terms of your skill sets and your knowledge working together on this type of business. In the early days, as you said, Luke, you were managing everything together. What was that working relationship like? And because you're obviously quite close as brothers prior, and I'm hoping still are.
we haven't had a blow up yet. So
okay, so no blow ups yet.
Close to 6 years. How many years we're up to?
Yeah, I think at the start, I think it's just so much fun. Like for that first year, where I think our attitude was, I was 26 and James was 24, and we sort of viewed this as our free hit of we're young enough that we could F the whole thing up, and young enough you'd go get another job, you'd save some more money, and you'd have another crack at something else. So I think there's so much freedom that came with that, and it's just all excitement about the opportunity, and really all like mainly good news to start with. I think you're getting excited about, oh my God, we're about to build a billboard. And so I think there wasn't really any huge challenges because we had complementary skills. We have very different personalities that work quite well together, and I'm probably more highly strung and want to go. James is much better at the people side of everything, of being able to put everything into perspective. So I think like if we had 2 Lukes, it'd be a nightmare. If we had 2 Jameses, it'd be a nightmare. It's only partially a nightmare when you've got both of them.
So it's like yin and yang, essentially. Like,
yeah, it definitely is funny. Like, we couldn't be more similar in a lot of ways, but more opposites. I think we're very fortunate in what those differences are that kind of aligns to make it all work. Which is pretty unique, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. That's super cool. I also liked how you said before, Luke, how, this is your opportunity to give it a crack, and the worst case scenario is we'll just get another job. Like, I think that's a really interesting frame, and I know something that I experienced when I first started Arrive and Thrive. It's like, worst case scenario, if it goes, belly up, I'll just get another job. Like, and I feel like it was kind of freeing, that mindset. Did you guys find that, or?
Yeah, I think like at the particular age we were when we started, like I think, you have more responsibility as you get older. I think, certainly for me, I probably can't talk for James on this, but certainly for me, as we're starting this business, when I'd left my last job, someone that had been sort of somewhat of a mentor for me and worked at Macquarie Bank had sort of, and he worked in New York, had said, look, go have a crack at this. If you mess it up in a year, I'll get you. You'll walk into a job at Macquarie. And kind of went, well, that's one of the best companies in Australia to work for. If I've got a year of a free swing, it was definitely very freeing. And I think that first year, both of us, just went. It's all upside.
Yeah.
There's no sort of, we didn't sit down and do a 30-page business plan and stress test Excel spreadsheets. And and even to this day, like we've always been so aligned in what we're trying to achieve. I think we try and not overcomplicate things, but that's one of the challenges as you get bigger, you need a bit more of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So like, are you noticing the different skill sets coming out and the new skills that you guys probably have to require now that you've got staff and you're not just accountable to each other? It's like, and your clients, there's like other layers of accountability.
I think we're definitely fortunate that there's two of us. So I think that's what is like we have so much blessing for, in that we can split our time between different things. And as we've grown, we've probably divvied up more. Like it used to be, we'd both basically look after everything and be involved with everything. And now we still have a little bit of that where there's both of us doing the same thing, like selling billboards. There's a necessity still for us to do that both. But outside of that, we've really divvied up everything and tried to just cordon off and say, hey, there's trust in the room and have that. So I think that's where we're very fortunate in to be able to have that opportunity to divide it up. And I think, we both definitely have different skills that come into that, but it's more, I think, what we get enjoyment of when you sit down and there's other voices in the room now to break up what is fairly constant between Luke and I. There's a lot of agreement because we think the same way, been brought up the same way and the same sort of values. So it's good now to have alternate people in the room going, oh, have you thought about this? Or even pulling us up sometimes, like don't mind getting told I'm wrong a fair few times.
I think it's changed. Like if you look at our weeks now, probably half of that is stuff that we weren't doing 2 or 3 years ago. And then if you look forward at what we do currently, probably 70% of our current week we won't be doing in 2 or 3 years to be able to get to kind of where we want to get to. And I think that's a little bit daunting because probably I think as we've grown at the start, you're just trying to get lower value tasks off your plate to try and maximize how much time you can spend on higher value stuff. And you probably go from 0 to 10 team members doing that. And for the first time now, you're having to redesign our roles to the stuff that we do and we love doing that you can't do forever. And that's the hardest because when at the start, most of the stuff that you're getting off your desk is stuff you don't necessarily enjoy doing, where there's stuff that both of us really love that if we keep on doing that, we're going to be the same size as we are today for forever, and we don't want that. So, that's what the next 2 or 3 years, I think the challenge is the stuff that that we've always really loved, that you've got to be able to let go of part of that and bring others in to do it.
Yeah. And I really think like part of that is that's like what we struggle with the most, is finding that balance between, having the relationship and understanding with absolutely everyone in the business and not have that on the ground feeling exactly the way they're feeling about their job, the market or the customers are feeling about us as a company. But, having that unequivocal trust with everyone else at different levels as well. So it's, definitely something that's what we kind of sit down and go, is such a hard balance to get that right. And I don't know if we've necessarily found that yet.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like it's just a work in progress, like constantly. You just got to keep your finger on the pulse.
Yeah, and that's been the challenge. Like for us, like we've pretty much grown the business like sort of 60 to 100% a year revenue growth every year for 6 years. And what we've learned along that journey is when you're growing at that rate, if you go 3 months in a row, just doing the day-to-day, 1 foot in front of the other, you're behind, and you look up and the business has just grown by 15% in 3 months and you're doing stuff the same as you were 3 months ago, and you're already starting to feel issues and you're behind the 8 ball. And we've definitely sort of had times where you do that. You think, oh, I'm going pretty good. We're selling sites. We're signing up new sites. And then you look up and go, oh, shit.
Yeah.
So I think definitely the forward planning, probably the last 6 months is the best. We've probably learned from that a little bit and is now the best we've ever had. But, you just got to constantly challenge yourself. And sometimes, to James's point earlier, you need people outside of the two of us to be able to do that as well, to be able to challenge us and trying to get better and keep pushing the envelope a little bit.
Yeah, because one thing I also really like about you guys and the social media that you put out, and some of the crew that I've been like fortunate enough to speak, you know, and know outside of, I suppose, work as well, they've just said, you know, the company's amazing, the culture's amazing. Like, what is it a part of your, I suppose, ethos to keep your company culture in a way that is positive for everyone, positive for you guys, and a place where people go, yeah, fuck yeah, I want to go to work. Like,
it is funny. I think like we're selfishly from the start have always had a really, really big thing that, you know, we can control the place that we come to work. So if we're not like loving it and loving the people around us, when we have the most control over that, then we're doing something wrong. So I think like it definitely has just stemmed from us sitting there going, okay, how do we make our weeks the best? And I think through that, you've always like, it started to become more of a thing. Like look at resumes through like our first kind of 10 or 12 people that came in. It was all just, you know, the quality of people they were and how they'd fit in with us. And there's always been that massive price tag put on anyone coming in that we really kind of, and we've always seek kind of feedback of existing team members and that sort of thing to make sure they're all aligned in wanting those people or big changes to happen. So I think from that, you know, it was always just focusing on the, you know, how happy everyone is, the things we can control, like, yeah, random going on trips and doing all the things we do. I think like there was always a focus on the things that we loved in the early days, trying to make sure that was accessible to anyone coming on through the team, like, you know, going to Mildura or whatever it is, or, you know, going on a trip to whatever town it is, couple of overnighters and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think we got a core group like together fairly early that's helped drive that culture as well. And now James and I are 2 of 18, so the culture, like some of it comes from us, but 16/18 of that culture comes from outside of us. And so I think to James's point, like, yeah, for us, like you want to go work somewhere you love. So we're incentivized we're here more hours than anyone else. So if we create some shit toxic culture, we're going to personally hate it. And I think like one of our business values, which none of our values are public, they're not on the website or anything, it's all completely internal, actually talks about just trying to create the absolute best workplace for everyone. And that's a goal of ours, is for every single person that works here, when they're retiring at 60 or 65, we want them to think this was their best job, not one of the better jobs, but reflect and go, that was the best place I ever worked. So I think, a lot of what we do is kind of around that and just trying to look at how do we create the best possible place to work for everyone. And I think like in social media, some gets lost. Like we all see the best parts of it, and everyone I always see goes, geez, you keep on hiring people. It all looks like so much fun. I think the cultural side of how much fun it is, I actually think our social media is genuinely what the day-to-day looks like. Like it is traveling, it's eating pies, having a beer with your mates at work. So I think that side of it is actually genuinely a really good insight into what it's like to be part of the team. But I think, there's plenty of we've had some swings and misses from hiring. We've had people that weren't a fit in the culture, and probably none of us post on LinkedIn saying, hey, old mate just got moved on. So there's definitely been some stuff like that. And we've had a couple where, our existing team said, hey, nah, not a fit. And I think that's a part of it, and trying to keep getting better. Yeah, cool.
That's a really good point. Like, what is the best pie shop in Victoria at this point?
Do you want a top 5?
Yeah, please, man. Have you got like is it like etched
100%.
In? Yeah, cool.
Like without a doubt, straight off the cuff.
Oh, that's serious. It's like, man.
We might have differing points here, but my favourite is, because I go there most frequently, my partner has a holiday place up in Echuca, is in Heathcote. So he's an absolute cracker. Beef and Shiraz country in Heathcote. Yep. At Gaffney's Bakery is a cracker. There's one.
Are you having this with a glass of vino too, just to really like?
Not on the road, but if I could, I would. And pies aren't great consumed with wine either. It's more a can of Coke or actually a chalky milk and a...
Chalky milk?
Yeah, chalky milk and a pie is quite frequent with us. So that's number one for me. Then there's in Rutherglen, Parker's Pies is another cracker.
Yeah.
On the main drag there. And then Bridgewater Bakehouse.
I've been there, man.
Yeah, is a good one.
Top notch.
Yeah, yep, is a great one as well.
Yeah.
Country Cob in Kyneton would be another one. They keep on winning the awards, rightly so.
But they've been winning awards for some rogue flavors. So I think it's controversial, some of that.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I'm a chunky steak sort of operator. I don't like when you get scallops or prawns in a pie to win a best pie competition.
That's fair, mate. I stick to the basics, I reckon, with pies. But, you know, you've obviously tasted a lot more than I.
Yeah.
Are you tasting like vanilla slices as well? Or like
Bridgewater Bakery is definitely the best vanilla slice going around. One of the hardest decisions, I think, and still to this day we wrestle with it, is you go to the bakery and, like, we're both sort of sizable guys and you can't, one pie's not enough. So you got to make the call of, is it a pie and a sandwich? Is it two pies or maybe a pie and a sort of sweet treat?
Yeah.
And
I always go the pie, sausage roll and a sweet treat.
but you're more of a man than either.
Don't know about that, mate.
Yeah, cool. If you're on road trips with us, we'd be sitting down at the urinal and you'd be in and out of the roadside bathroom.
And so, like, what were some of the what has been like the main highlights for you guys on your journey thus far, and any ones that really come to mind where you've perhaps shared together or where you've shared amongst the team, or?
I think like the easiest one, we did a big party for our 100th billboard last year, and
was this the music festival?
Yeah, it was basically it was amazing. Like, it was amazing. We had sort of about 180 people, which was suppliers, people in our team, sort of supporters, clients, all this kind of thing. Had kind of glamping tents for everyone, sort of 3 music acts, like a bucking bull sort of set up. And that was just a celebration of everyone that's been involved in our journey. And that's what was most special is, there was a few people that couldn't make it, but largely everyone that supported us, from some advice along the way to a client to been out there physically building stuff or installing stuff. And that, like, to be able to have that moment where you can reflect, you can party with everyone, was just so proud for the two of us, and it's so much fun.
It was like just one of those moments where you had every walk of life there. Like, you think you've got our builder who's been building billboards, who's a fabricator from Morwell for 30, 40 years, installers who are local sign writers in all these towns, made the trip over, mixing in with some of the biggest names in advertising that have been in the industry for however many years, and, very well off from it. And we were kind of sitting there going, oh, you got all these like one person with plus ones and all this sort of mix. It's like, how's it going to play out? And I think, like, it's funny when you reflect on, the culture stuff that we were talking before. I think we definitely, in that core group of everyone that was there, like, you can see that there's just reverberated out into them, and everyone just came and, like, just absolutely, like, had an absolute amazing time, got on it, and just, like, really celebrate it with us. I think, like, everyone does feel like they've been part of the journey, because there's a lot of people there that have been kind of early on clients, and I think that's why we're really fortunate, is to now get to the stage where, you've been dealing with people for however many years. It's not just fighting tooth or nail to get a couple of dollars out of someone. It's like these ingrained relationships with, like, incredible people, which, regional's all about. So we're very fortunate for that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so I think that, the party's definitely an obvious one because it brought everything together. I think just, a lot of the relationships, like, now the people that we've been dealing with for 5 or 6 years, and you're having beers with the same people and get to know them personally really well. It's been really rewarding. And then I think, as our team's grown, just watching, you're always so worried when you go from 8 to 10 to 15 that, we're going to lose what's special about the culture. And I think every single time when that team's grown, it's only added to it. And nothing's more rewarding than, like, when you see feedback from clients that don't even know James or I exist, they've dealt with someone in a sales process, they've dealt with someone to do their artwork, and then someone else to deliver their campaign, someone else to invoice it, and they've dealt with 4 people at Gawk, don't know we exist, and send an email saying how incredible that service is. They've never seen it anywhere else, and using words to describe their experience with Gawk, which are just so inherently tied to the values of the business. And they could be talking about dealing with James, they could be talking about dealing with me, but they're never met us. To be able to watch as we've grown, see that and the values just be amplified by others. You have days when you have everyone in the office and you look around and it's just absolutely humming. That's, I think, as satisfying as anything, because you look around and go, hey, hopefully we've created an awesome place for people to work. And now this thing continues to grow, and it's not just driven by the 2 of us, it's driven by 16 other people.
Passing the baton.
Now to cut through the shit, because you got the corporate response now. I'll just come and throw some salt on everything.
Layman's terms.
I want to go back to a few favourite moments across the journey. I think like one for me, that first billboard down in Portland, we were going out doing building permits, which now our builder does, but in the start we kind of didn't know how it all worked, and we're doing a bit of that. And anyway, we built this thing, got the building inspector to go out to get the final stamp to go, yeah, mate, it's, all clear. Done. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, boys, you're going to have to build a retaining wall. Like the builder just kind of cut into the side of a hill. There was a fence about to cave in.
Right.
Bit of a dodgy setup. So anyway, took ages to find someone just to go out and build this retaining wall. Ended up getting someone that probably didn't care enough about the job and just threw it up. Got the inspector back out, and it's like, oh, you got to fill in behind this retaining wall. So anyway, you're not getting someone, when we struggle to get someone to pay someone like 5 or 10 grand to build a retaining wall, you're not paying someone $500 to go fill some dirt in behind the thing. So anyway, call this local earth moving contractor. He's like, mate, I'll come drop it down there, some dirt for you guys. We're going to have to shovel it behind it. So we're on a road trip at the time.
I went for a slab of beer. He didn't want to get paid. He just a couple of slabs of beer.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'll pay you. He's like, no, I'm not letting you pay me. So
right.
Like, all right, we'll have to go. So went down, bought him a slab, bought ourselves a couple of long necks and sat there for 2 hours shoveling dirt behind a retaining wall, just building some calluses because we've been spending too much time behind. So that was a good character
team
building.
Yeah.
Another one was, we were reflecting on this morning with the Olympic Games coming up. Luke and I used to decide who was managing director at the start of every year via an Olympic Games over our summer camping trip. I'm the younger brother and never kind of leveled up to Luke at any stage of our relationship. So I can honestly say I didn't win any of those Summer Olympic Games, and if I had have, we would not be nowhere near where we're at. So there are a couple, and then I reckon as well, like, it's funny reflecting on our first Christmas party we ever did. We decided to go to Seymour Cup, $80 a ticket. You got
That's just the 2 of you.
Yeah, just the 2 of us.
Stayed at the caravan park.
Got a caravan park.
Cabin though, we had a good year.
$120 at the caravan park. Went out there, had piss all day included, and 3-course meal. Kind of nothing happens after the Seymour Cup. We met a couple of people that ended up being landlords in Seymour from that day, just sitting on the same table. But we ended up getting a 6-pack and sitting by the river and sleeping in the same room together that night.
With a set menu for dinner. Starting with dim sims and then potato cakes.
But I think like all that sort of stuff was the time where when we're in that mindset of, hey, like, what's the worst that can happen? Like I think we did the calculations at the end of the first year of how much we'd spent on our road trips, and it was like $5,000 or something, and we'd been on the road like literally nearly every second week. Like you're staying in the worst motels ever, you're eating the worst takeaway food ever, but that was as good as it got. Like it was fun.
I love that, because that's like, the classic startup stories that you hear in like Silicon Valley, how like everyone's like, or just here locally, like working out of the garage and things like that. Like that's so classic that you guys were literally shoveling dirt on your first billboard, being like, hey, I hope this works out. And then like doing your road trips together, sampling the dimmies around the corners of the regional Victoria. It's classic. It's awesome.
It's definitely simple.
And so when it comes to like, I suppose the future of advertising in the outdoor spaces around regional Victoria, where do you guys see it going? Like, is there, or do you feel like the type of media of like a billboard will just be, it's etched in time and will always be there?
Well, like for us, the industry as a whole, we've been lucky in the time that we got into it. And when we first got into outdoor, it was probably only sort of 4 or 5 years into the start of digital billboards. So by virtue of billboards going digital, outdoor companies were writing more revenue, attracting new clients to the industry. So the industry had started growing pretty substantially. That got hit by COVID for a couple of years. That stopped the industry growth, and that's really picked up again the last couple of years. So we've been really lucky to be involved at a time where the industry most years has sort of grown 10, 15%, which for a really large industry is really substantial growth. And yeah, we've been able to sort of piggyback on that and bring a lot of clients that wouldn't have ever used a billboard before to the industry. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of growth to come just by virtue of outdoor, in our very biased opinion, being more effective for a lot of clients than we just get a ton of business from the people that might have advertised in print or radio or TV for 20, 25 years, and now they're trying something new, and we think there's a lot of blue sky around there.
I think that's just like one thing that we uncovered through the process of going through those early stages. Like when we were by necessity forced to go out and fill a couple of signs ourselves, we realised just what those regional media landscapes actually look like. I don't think anyone can really understand unless they've been out there and seen these organisations and how they operate. Like the local radio stations are the centre of town. Like they have every business in town, and then you've got, TV stations that have been just, absolute fortresses for 30 years. And when you look at that nationally, how that spend's changing, it still probably hasn't happened regionally as much just because those ingrained relationships. So we're at this really kind of fortunate position where we're coming at it where, regionally it's probably just a few years behind what's happening on a national level just because of those ingrained relationships. So it's still us fighting tooth or nail just to give people the understanding of it. But once they come in, they realise that there is, grass green on the other side, and that they just have never tried before.
But yeah, and I think like in terms of the future, if you look forward, sort of call it 5 years, like what's going to happen a lot, like static billboards still have a really effective place in a marketing mix for building brand awareness, and we still see that. We still build a lot of statics. They're still really, really effective, but some of the technology within the digital billboards, that's what's really going to come to the fore in the next 5 years. Even in metro markets, it's sort of just starting, so it really probably hasn't started regionally. But in 5 years, you'll have a lot of creative, which is dynamic. So you already have campaigns in metro markets where you look at a digital billboard, and if it's over 30 degrees, McDonald's has a soft serve ad, where if it's under 20 degrees, they'll have a Big Mac. Where you can have billboards with live tennis scores. You can have ads from a chemist that only display when the pollen count is above a certain level, giving you an ad for some kind of
Zyrtec or something.
Zyrtec or whatever brand. So most of that really hasn't even started regionally, where probably in 5 years on a lot of the digitals, that I think will be the norm. And then better measurement for clients as well, to be able to, you're starting to be able to show a client that this person, that a certain person's gone past a billboard, seen an ad for McDonald's, and then actually gone to McDonald's and have some attribution around that sale. So there's still some of that is starting to happen a little bit in metro markets that in 5 years will certainly be the norm in metro markets, and it's up to us to make that the norm regionally.
Yeah, that's wild. I'd never thought about it like that, because I suppose it's very similar to like when you're on your phone and you looked at like a pair of shoes and then you're on like a website and then bang, that commercial comes up and you're like, oh yeah, those shoes. I need to go buy those. But it's like, oh yeah, that Big Mac. I need to go have that Big Mac. Like, that's wild.
Yeah, I think like that's the way the world's going. I think like there's definitely going to be some changes, particularly in the digital standpoint as well. Like with all the cookie stuff that's playing out, like we'll see how that kind of ends up landing with some of that ad serving that does occur. But yeah, I think like we're excited about some of that stuff. I think like, you know, when you look at technology and being in the age we are, you look at all that and just get excited by what the possibilities are and just figuring out a way. I think like that's what's cool about us at the size we're at is, you probably like now make enough money to invest in some of that stuff, but you're still very frugal in the way you're doing it. So it's like, I love just like looking at it and dumbing it right down and going, okay, how does it work? How can we do this in a really, really simple way? And usually there's an answer. So yeah, I think that's a really exciting part of the job.
Would you guys classify yourselves as like a scale up now? Like what would you like when people say, oh, you know, boys, what do you do? Like,
I think the thing that we love about this business is the simplicity. Like James talked about, we sell rectangles on the side of the road, but you only grow this business by adding locations one at a time. You've got to go from 118 billboards to 119 billboards, and that means signing up a new site, getting another council approval, go and find a client for it, and that sort of one foot in front of the other is grounding and also gives you the confidence for that future growth. So yeah, it is a capital intensive business, which also means you're not like a software company where you're going to grow at 1,000% next year. You really got to keep building stuff to keep on growing. So I think, we are at a juncture where, the team changes. We've gone from 8 last January to 18 this January, and we'll probably push 30 by next January. So you start getting to the point where you have departments that didn't exist, more senior decision makers outside of James and I. So I think as we go from 18 to 50 in 2 to 3 years, there's a lot of processes and departments and decisions that don't get made today that will, but I think that's exciting.
I think we've tried to steer clear of the startup sort of catchwords and that sort of stuff through everything we've done. I think it's always been like, even when we had 2 billboards, mate, we're a billboard company. We're not a bloody startup. So we'll just stick to doing that.
Yeah, we're also like an earth moving site on the side. No, that's great. And boys, if you don't mind me asking, like, what is the vision for Gawk, and like, if you don't mind sharing, like,
I think we have a really clear path to dominate, outdoor advertising in regional Victoria. So, we have a clear vision of what the next 3 to 5 years looks like in terms of what we think the opportunity looks like. I think anything else is so far out of our control. Like it's so hard to understand when you talk about other states and their planning schemes, and the way we can understand them is it's like starting out at square one. So for us, we know what we're good at in Victoria. We have so much confidence on it, but when we look at anything else, there is just a lot of question marks over it. So I think like we're just excited to find growth no matter how it would come. So, what that might look like, we don't know, but we know that we're probably not the type of people that'll sit down and get comfortable in 3 years' time when we've developed the shit out of regional Victoria.
Yep.
So I'm sure there will be something else at that stage, but what that may or may not look like is, probably a question up for the jury when we reach that.
Yeah, exciting times though.
Yeah, 100%. I think like all that sort of stuff. Yeah, again, like we're excited to find time in our week when you get through some of the stuff that we're currently occupying it with to what the opportunity could then land with. So
yeah, nice. And last couple of questions, and I really appreciate your time, boys. If you were to give some advice to someone, or maybe like, some brothers or some sisters or family members who are thinking about starting their own business, like any advice that you would give if someone is deciding to go into business with a family member, or starting at ground zero from a business idea perspective?
I might take the ground zero part, and James can have the starting a business with a family member. But I think just like embracing having a crack at something and being willing to make mistakes, because that's what we've always done. I think we've just tried stuff. We've thrown ourselves in the deep end. You fuck something up and you just try and not fuck the same thing up again has been kind of our mantra. And I think sometimes people sort of try and wait for perfection before having a go at something. So I think that's part of it. I think like the value of sales in any business is so important. Like in our industry in particular, it's probably half your business, but really in any business, like you've got to sell to schools in your business, Ty. I think like those sales skills that none of us get taught at high school or at uni, whether you're an accountant in a corporate job, whether you own your own business, you've got to be able to sell. And yeah, I think learning some of those sales skills and then just having a crack and learning from some mistakes are probably the two things that have been most important to us.
Yeah, love it.
No,
Got the hard question?
Nah, I find it is a hard question to answer. And I think, like, in all honesty, if you're part of a sibling group or family that don't speak at Christmas for a couple of weeks because you hate each other, you're probably not the best suited to get into business with each other. I think we're very fortunate. You know, when you're going through teenage years, you have a couple of dust-ups. You know, when you're young, you have a couple of dust-ups. But I reckon post 18-ish, we've been pretty good mates, and from that date, we haven't had a blow up. I think like we are very fortunate. You have disagreements, but you both have that unequivocal trust that their heart's in the right place, that you kind of know where they're coming from, and yeah, like I think we've been fortunate and resilient enough to go through some of that hard yards to get where we've got to. So when I get a slap on the wrist from Luke, I don't sit there. Might affect me for 20 minutes, but by the end of the day, I'll be, giving him a hip and shoulder or trying to dunk on him in the basketball ring in the office. But I think we're just I think I probably have that the just way of dumbing everything down and being a dickhead to make Luke laugh and come back, because he's obviously a bit more tightly wound and worked up about things. And I think as long as you can just have a laugh about everything, which we managed to do in a lot of circumstances, like you'll be good.
Yeah.
I think the one challenge, and you start to see it from our point of view now, I think so much of your relationship, if you look at our relationship 6 years ago before you started this business, there is parts of that that's really positive you do lose. Like now 95% of the time you're talking about billboards or a problem you got at work. Yeah. So it becomes 95% of your relationship sometimes, and then it becomes such a big part of your identity where we go to family stuff and people just want to ask how work is.
Yeah, gotcha.
Whenever you're together, that's all people want to talk about, and you sort of lose some of the other parts of your relationship that are quite positive, and you lose sort of some of the other parts of your identity. I think that's always the challenge for us as well to keep working through, is to retain being really good mates.
Yeah.
And being able to talk about stuff that isn't rectangles on the side of the road.
Yeah, it's a good point, because so I feel like the line of people go, don't go into business with family, and whenever I hear that, I'm like, yeah, but I know two guys who are doing it pretty good.
I think I've had advice from 95% of the population that said don't do it. So something's going to go wrong at some stage.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the cool thing. It's you've been going for 6 years.
Yeah,
it's
I'm pretty confident we'll stick it out now. We'll see.
And this still could be as legal evidence in dispute in the future when we're trying to break
this
up.
This could
the
be
asset.
the moment. I could be the. So, boys, last question. This Arrive and Thrive started with a dear friend of mine, Dan, who's no longer with us. And one of the ways in which he used to say, what are you passionate about and what are you enthusiastic about? He'd say, what are you roaring about?
Taco. I'm roaring.
So what makes you roar? And that could be a book, that could be a TV show, that could be anything at all. We had someone say nunchucks one time. So is there anything that you guys do that I suppose, makes you raw outside of rectangles on the side of the road?
Luke had those teaspoon collections. So, like...
What?
No,
I was like, that's kind of cute. Like each town he goes to, he just collects a spoon.
I think my one is definitely, I had a couple that I absolutely froth at the moment, which is so I live in Warrandyte on the Yarra. Going for a run and then sitting in the Yarra to cool off I even do it in the middle of winter sometimes.
Yeah,
just because
nice.
it absolutely, it just resets me. So that's my big one. And then the other I've just kicked off, actually, thank you to your dad for putting me onto.
Dickie.
Yeah, getting a mention.
swingers parties.
He'll just be listening, just waiting for...
He's got an app he got me onto Imprint, which is like little short stories.
Yeah, cool.
All like important kind of, different books that are dumbed down and put into pictures and have a few. So I
might
use
write that one down, actually.
it's a cracker.
Yeah, sick.
So I save my little things and then go back and review all the key points.
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks for sharing.
I think my two. One, I'm old school. I still get the paper delivered every morning. I just love. You can't beat reading the paper. Which I probably don't have a vested interest in pushing print advertising as a medium. But just nothing beats. I'll often go for brekkie on the way to work by myself. Take the paper, sit there, have a coffee, start the day right, and just read the old-fashioned hard copy. So I love that, taking half an hour out of your day, starting it right like that. And then the second one, I think it's a rite of passage for white men in sort of 30 plus, but I started sort of smoking meats at home. It was before COVID, but that's my weakness. In give me 8 hours and
bit of brisket,
and some red meat, and have a couple of beers, and that's certainly about as good as a Saturday gets for me, I think.
No, I love it, boys. And how can people see your updates and get in touch with Gawk and things like that?
Yeah, everything's on the different socials and LinkedIn and stuff. And then, I think our website's very up to date as well. And you can give us a call or reach out at any stage. I think we're pretty good being in the sales industry at least. I'll answer anyone to call me. That's my biggest thing. So, I definitely have been sold into a few things.
And if you're trying to sell LED lighting upgrades, we'll put James's mobile number in the show notes.
Yeah.
Well, boys, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and keep up the amazing work.
Thank you.
Thanks,
for having
Ty.
us. Yeah.
Pleasure.